when we live in a world that is so, again, aggressive in some ways,
Right.
and promoting and pushing their agendas, their values, pushing those into the mainstream of our lives. We are affected by it. And what we're wanting to do over this next little while is try to help with how to respond. How do we respond to that in a way that is biblical, that is a way that's foundational to what God would have us to.
Thanks for joining the Home Matters Podcast with Eric and Gina Boggs, where they lead authentic, raw discussions about marriage, family life, kids, intimacy, and sex from a biblical perspective. Here's your host, Eric and Gina Boggs.
Well, hello, Eric Boggs.
Hello. Welcome to Home Matters.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome to you, and welcome to everyone listening out there.
Glad you joined us
Thank
today.
you for joining us.
Hope you've had a good start to your day. And
That's right. Good start
or
to...
you're maybe about to finish, but we're glad you joined the podcast.
Right.
And always an honor for us to be able to just talk to you a few minutes about home and family and
That's right.
marriage and what all does the intro say?
Listen, I
say about
It
I
says
said sex,
intimacy and sex and
raising kids, all that stuff.
parenting, all that stuff. And man, that's a lot,
Everything
isn't
that
it?
goes into building a home, building family, and
Which is so easy. I don't know why we have such a hard time, right?
Yep. You know, it
Not
is
really.
looking back. You know, you don't realize. Sometimes you don't realize the strain that you're in until you're out of it.
This is true.
And
Yeah.
I think a lot of it. I think that's
It's
God's
just the
grace for
grind.
one thing.
Oh,
He
definitely.
graces our life.
He graces us for every season. That's what I tell my girls now when I keep my grandkids,
Yep.
you know, all like 7. And then you're like,
You mean when we keep all 7?
yeah,
of
when
them.
I
Yeah.
don't do that by myself. Thank you very much. But
We haven't kept all 7 of them though. Really, the 2 littles. Have they all been there at the same time?
I don't know. Close. I don't know. But anyway, I'm just saying, you know, that we enjoy it. We love it. But it's a different season. And so the grace for that is different.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
Yeah.
we had 4 kids of our own, and they were, you know, like stair steps, 4 and 6 years.
Yeah.
And you just do it. I mean, when you're in the middle
And
of it,
it is
you just
it's
do
a
it.
challenge. Raising a family is a challenge. It's a worthwhile challenge. But
Worthwhile.
especially today, and what we're going to
Yes.
talk about, we're getting into this subject. We're going to talk about a little while, maybe more than one podcast. But man, dealing with culture.
Yeah,
And,
the culture we live in and the challenge that it really presents
Yeah.
to us in raising a family, right? And leading children and leading a home. You know, if you're a mom and dad home, or if you're a single parent home, the challenge is great.
Yeah, it's almost as if the culture that we're in our society today, in our world today, it's almost as if you've been dropped into a place that is at least resistant, if not an all-out assault or war. You know, It's almost like you've been dropped in a war zone, and it's different. And you know, we had something happen a few weeks ago with the opening of the Olympics. It got a lot of conversation stirred again. That you know, if you know what I'm talking about, the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, the night that there was betrayal either of the Lord's Supper or the Da Vinci painting of the Last Supper, or if it was a Greek god, Dionysius, or whatever he is.
A lot of conversation on
Yeah,
that.
not
right?
even sure if that was one or the other. I do believe the image of what was portrayed was so much more like the Last Supper than it was the other. I looked at both, but again, there's certain poses that it certainly looks. But man, it created a lot of conversation, a lot of social media stuff.
It did. I think, you know, it's kind of out there in your face, and a lot of people started responding to it. But that's not the beginning of our culture
Lord,
problem.
no.
And, you know, maybe there was some conversation that came alive during that time. But, you know, we're all affected of our culture all the time. And culture is more than, just what I'm seeing out there and my response to it. Culture really runs deep, I think you have to say, in the fact that whether I'm really moved by it or whether I think I'm responding to it, it does affect my thinking. It does affect, my responses.
You mean the influences of our world around us?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it affects our homes, and I think we really have to be on guard. We have to have our eyes open, walk circumspectly, the word says, paying attention to the times, not just being caught away in the rush and the wave of everything, the busyness.
I thought we needed to take some time, though, to give some attention to that, because I think that with that, I think that a lot of families, a lot of moms and dads, or people in general, I think that it was almost like a whirlwind you were thrown into, and people don't really know what to say or what to do or how to respond. And there's plenty there, right? There's plenty there. That, like you said, it didn't just start with the Olympic ceremony.
Olympics, absolutely not.
There's a lot going on around us and our kids, our grandkids, our church family. Everybody's affected by it.
Yeah, and not to downplay, one thing over the other, but just in saying, are we as concerned? Are we as maybe bothered? Or, is our day as interrupted just in the day-to-day when we are confronted with a culture that, doesn't line up maybe to our Christian beliefs and what we know God has called us to? Does that bother us? Are we moved by that? I think we have to ask ourselves that question.
Yeah, and I think that, for the bigger part, I'd say, we do. You say it bothers us. In what way does it bother us? I think it's the way I have to look at it. Yeah, does it bother me? Do I get frustrated? Am I disgusted? All of that is real. Yeah, I do. I get frustrated and disgusted with the world around us. And
the way I'm going at it, though, is are we bothered enough to respond or to do something about it in the way that Jesus would lead us to?
I don't think we know how. I don't think we know how to respond in a way. We don't have the full knowledge of how to respond. And I say that for myself. If you're out there and you say, well, I got it all together, God bless you. But I'm just saying that sometimes, you don't know where or how to approach issues or topics or trends in our culture, how to confront those and do it in the way that Jesus would. I think that that is our calling. That's our purpose. Our homes are different than our homes should be culturally, should be different than what we're dealing with in the world. And people who do not have the leading of God's Spirit, do not have the leading of His Word. We should realize that, man, our lives are impacted by the things that are going on around us.
For sure.
But at the same time, I'm not afraid necessarily. But at the same time, I got to know that what I have is true, and what I have is it cannot be defeated. What I have is victorious in the sense of. So again, in our homes, our families, I think that's something we have to look at.
Absolutely, and just thinking about, are our homes, is our response to culture, or are we more culture-like, or are we more Christ-like? Because we know, most of our listeners here, I would think, say we follow after Christ, we're believers. So is our response even to culture Christ-like? Or are we living more
but you're saying though that is our culture, is the culture of our home more like Christ would lead us in, or is it more like the world around us? That's what you're saying, right? It's kind of frog in the kettle thing. We're being cooked slowly. We're dropped in the pot, and here we go, and before you know it, it's led to death or destruction. And the culture, the pot, of our culture, we're dropped into the middle of it. Like I said, we do want to be able to get out. We do want to be able to hop out of things that are going to destroy our family.
Right.
We want to make sure that we're able to deal with the things that are out to destroy or to degrade God's first institution. That's what Home Matters is all about. It's about dealing with the fact that, all right, God established a home and family,
right,
first institution, then how we navigate from there. How do we keep that healthy? How do we keep our homes and our families productive and fruitful and flourishing in the places of God when we live in a world that is so, again, aggressive in some ways, and promoting and pushing their agendas, their values, pushing those into the mainstream of our lives. We are affected by it. And what we're wanting to do over this next little while is try to help with how to respond. How do we respond to that in a way that is biblical, that is a way that's foundational to what God would have us to?
Yeah, and it may be the next podcast before we really get into our response that much, but just kind of opening up here with our conversation. I think we always have to go back to the Word, obviously, and realizing that Jesus Christ is our example. Right? 1 Peter 2:21, listen, for God called you to do good, even if it means suffering, just as Christ suffered for you. He is our example, and you must follow in his steps. I didn't bring my phone with me to read the rest of that, but if you continue with verses 22 to 25, he expands there on what his example looks like. How we are to live our lives. And man, if you go through those things there that are listed, I challenge you to look at those. That's quite the measuring stick. I mean, that's a great place to start in him being our example and how we're to live our life.
Yeah. You want to read that?
I can. You want to flip over there?
I can. I can pull that right up. Let's see.
Okay. Just remembering in all of that, as we are in this culture, in this world, we know the Word says we're not part of it. We are citizens of another kingdom. And so the kingdom culture, the kingdom that we are citizens of, has to come and rule in our homes, right? Rule in our lives.
Right.
Look, verse 22, he never sinned nor ever deceived anyone. Listen, he didn't retaliate when he was insulted, nor threaten revenge when he suffered. Wow. He left his case, listen to this, in the hands of God, who always judges fairly. He personally carried our sins in his body on the cross so that we can be dead to sin and live for what is right. By his wounds you are healed.
Yeah, again, that's the life that we're called to, right? And in responding to and again, you said we cover more of it next time, but again, in actually dealing with this thing that's going on around us, man, that life that he lived and his response to culture is something that calls us, it stretches us. I don't mind saying, just being kind of transparent, I think us even dealing with this topic is kind of a challenge.
Definitely.
I think for us even to deal with it and to try to make sure we say it in a way that's helpful and lifting and not just demeaning and degrading. I think that if we're not careful, we can get this mindset that in some ways is so condescending that, nobody really even considers the fact that you might really care.
Yeah.
And so again, as we deal with it.
And isn't that important though?
It is.
That we make sure that the love of Christ leads through.
Yeah,
our
we're raising
responses
kids.
and everything.
We're raising kids, and our kids, as we raise kids, I have to ask, do they pick up on my frustrations and my disgust? Is that the leading factor, or is it the fact that my heart sees people in a light that really loves people and cares for people, even that are very different and even that are headed toward destruction, right? Headed toward trouble. And again, even that statement that I'm making right there, if I say, well, there's certain places in life in our culture that are leading us toward destruction, there are people that anti that and oppose that statement. But the reality is it really just proves itself out. And so again, when we look at that, our homes, we've always said you got to make sure the culture of your home is that you pick up the culture of the kingdom, that is the influence of how we lead,
that is ruled by that, right?
Yeah, how we run our homes.
Right.
Can I say it that way?
The decisions, the morals, the ethics we live by, that everything, the way I am a wife, the way he is a husband, the way we are parents, that every single thing in our life is governed not by the cultural norm, so to speak, but the norm of heaven.
Yeah.
The norm of the culture
for
of
us
heaven,
to recognize, even
Jesus.
as our families, that we recognize that we're citizens first of heaven. You know, some people get really up in arms about, you know, this nationalism and whatever, about, you know, being too much or being too vested in our citizenship here. We are in this world. I am a citizen of the United States by choice. I'm a citizen of the kingdom of heaven by the grace of God, right?
Yeah, thank God.
So again, I could live wherever I chose, and so can everybody else. You may not like this, but I've always said if you don't like it here, there are plenty of places to choose from. So you can mark that one up on your notes. But again, you know, I don't in any way, I don't feel that our nation, being a part of this nation, being a part of this country that I feel like is blessed of God, with all of its warts and flaws,
with everything that's wrong.
Yeah, I do believe that as a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, that is my first citizenship.
Right.
Secondarily to that is my citizenship of America.
Exactly.
But I do believe that we have to do those dually. I don't believe you can just say, well, I'm a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. True. But you're also here and supposed to be a good citizen of America as well.
Right.
So, again, how you navigate that and how that looks and how we lead our homes in that is where I think a lot of people
I love the
trip
thought, too, that was brought out here in Beach Springs at this house in the last couple of weeks in a sermon. I'm not sure, maybe Pastor Jonathan or Pastor Kevin, just the fact of that we are here right now in this season and a part of this culture.
Right.
You know, as Esther, for such a time as this.
Yeah.
You know, so I think God has entrusted us in a way with being here for this time and this place, and he will grace us. We've already talked about that. He will grace us. He will lead us by his Spirit, I believe, to know how to respond, to know how to love like he loves in the culture that we're a part of, to know how to show compassion and grace and understanding, even as we guide and lead in a way that's contrary to a lot of what's going on in culture. Right. I think Philippians 4:8 has been a life verse for you. I've heard you quote it and signed by it so many times. But as citizens of the kingdom, that's what we embrace, right? What's there? What does it say? Truth to start out with, right? We got to know what truth is. Yeah. Whatever's true, honorable, just, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent. You know, God help me replace the ungodly in this culture. You know.
Well, the first thing is whatever is true.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's one of the places. And again, we just encourage you. I know we're just kind of talking through this today, and it may not be a little, we're not dropping nuggets here that you can 1, 2, 3, 4. But at the same time, I think it's a reality that everybody's struggling with. I think everybody is frustrated, and we're just saying that, man, there's a place that you can establish your home. On truth. And, most of the people listening, most of you probably would agree with us that some of these things that we're dealing with, but we just want you to know, man, this is something you got to get. I think our families, our children, generations after us are dependent on us getting this part right.
Yeah, and you said it. Most of you out there listening are probably believers, and we know this, right? We know the kingdom of our home is supposed to be the kingdom of the culture. We know we should be building on truth, and we don't disagree with that, but it's just foundationally, it is necessity. It is a necessity in our life that it's more than just what we say we believe, but that we actually build our homes this way, right? Yeah,
and again, if we miss this, we always say it starts at home. It starts at home. What starts at home? values start at home.
Absolutely.
The principles, the ethos, the ethics of your home, your family life, all of that is building and is establishing you. So if those things are wavering, or if they're muddy, or there's not stability there, if you don't know where you stand, then I'd say that, boy, we're really at a place that we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I think that again, I know we're about finished for today, but I think it's so easy for us to be overwhelmed, and maybe we can start back with this next time. We can be so overwhelmed by all this that's going on in our world that we know, a lot of us know, man, that isn't right. You know, that's not going to work, or that's not being even realistic.
Right.
But if we don't see that and realize that, man, I've got to get this part right. I got to get, for my kids and my grandkids and my extended family, my neighborhood, my community, the society I'm a part of. If I don't get this right, boy.
As crazy as this sounds, it really comes down to a decision, does it not?
Every day.
It just comes down
every
to
day of my life.
A day by day, minute by minute, decision that we make to say straight from the word, as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. Understanding in that, okay, can we lighten the load a little bit? Understanding in that we are not going to get it right every day. We're not going to be perfect. Man, our home, our family, God blessed us. He graced us. I'll just say, because of God, we got amazing kids, an amazing family, but it was absolutely not because we did everything perfect.
No.
I think God saw our heart. He saw our desire.
I'll say this, it was not perfect, far from it. I had to get you in line a lot of times, but I felt like, sometimes I didn't know what I was doing, but one thing I knew, this one thing I know, that I know I'm persuaded, that I know I'm committed, that I know who I'm following, that I know that I'm going to give my life, I'm going to build my life on what is true, what is God's word. It is absolute, it is immovable, it is steady, it is steadfast.
It has been proven over and over
and
again.
that one decision, I think, is something you've got to make every day.
Right.
We'll pick up on it again next time. We'll start back into this thought maybe, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
And again, we're going to talk some about responding. We're going to do some 1, 2, 3s. I think we got some of that in there where we.
It's coming, right?
Yep. We'll give you some of that, how to live this thing out.
Hey, you can do it with God's help, right?
Yeah,
His mercy, His grace.
Your home matters.
Every
Until
single day.
Next time.